Hi and welcome to Across the Desk. This week we're going to talk about the GOP's failed culture war, especially when it comes to the policies and the policy ideals they have when it comes to women's health care in the forms of birth control and abortion. So some new statistics came out this week on the GOP culture wars they're having with the LGBTQ people, and especially when it comes to, and the surprising numbers, where their stances are on abortion. Now, what has happened is the Supreme Court came out and they totally threw a monkey in the wrench when it comes to abortion, when it comes to Roe versus Wade. Now we have this Dobbs decision that says, hey, we're going to give it back to the states. Well, this has absolutely caused a lot of chaos. So we have a bunch of different states, each having a bunch of different rules and laws. Some are constitutional or not. And then you have all these red, right-wing states who are just going really overboard, to the point of keeping women from crossing state lines if they're pregnant. That's as far as they want to go. And it's not only that, they also want to cut out birth control. They've talked about looking into stopping birth control for women. This is something that they have had and won since the 60s. And here they are, back again, wanting to take us back 60 years and outlaw contraception for women. This goes back to this adage of just making sex as dangerous as you can possibly make it, because somehow this is a sin and we have to procreate by doing it. So this makes totally zero logical sense on what they're doing. What they're doing really is they're chasing a base. They're chasing the 17% of the electorate. That's what they're doing. And it's growing smaller and smaller, because when you look at the statistics that came out, near 72% of everyone thinks abortion should be legal in some aspects, especially when it comes to health of the mother. If you have a baby, you're having a baby, you're in your 4th month, and all of a sudden your water breaks, that baby's not going to survive it. Well, there are actually some in the GOP who say, you know, that woman needs to carry that baby to term, whether it kills her or not, because it absolutely could. And this is where they're at with their values today. Forcing women to have these septic pregnancies, and that could possibly kill them because they're so staunch on this anti-abortion issue. And it's killing them. It really is. It's why we saw Wisconsin go the way it did in the election just a couple of weeks ago. It's why we saw Michigan do what it did, and it's why we're seeing the GOP slowly get chipped away because of this issue. And it's a big one. And you can tell because there's other things that go along with it. Now, there's a strategy being played by Republicans. Now, some Republicans, they absolutely see this as a killer for them. The abortion issue, it's not friendly to them at all. It's not friendly to getting them votes or money or anything else. It really doesn't. So really what they want to do is they want to deflect that, because I'll tell you why. Women make up the biggest voting bloc in the United States. There is no bigger voting bloc than women. And when the GOP come at them and their health care, saying, hey, you know, we're going to look at going to your employer and telling them to deny you to get birth control to your health insurance. We're going to make sure that we can deny them to give you any kind of insurance to get an abortion. Anything like this, as far as going to say, hey, we need to make sure that you're not taking a pregnant woman across state lines to get an abortion in a state that's legal. That's just crazy to me. Really? So just because they're a citizen of your state, they feel like they own these women. That's how I feel about the GOP today. They feel like they own women, like they're objects to be handled and to be owned. Under our thumb. They need to do what we say, and that's where the GOP is coming at with this. You can go to James Lankford's feed, go to his Twitter or his Facebook, and he can't get off of it. He can't get off of absolutely zero abortion in any case whatsoever. And he's probably one of the most extreme people, one of the most extreme conservatives in the Senate today is James Lankford. I will say he is probably one of the biggest extremists. He's not probably the biggest. I mean, Andy Biggs he's pretty out there and a radical. But James is right there up there with him, and he can't stop. And that's the deal. It's like watching a slow-moving train wreck. And it goes back to strategy in a way. Because back a long time ago, they realized, hey, when you get a large group of people together, things don't move really quick. And they don't slow down that fast either. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. We're seeing some of the GOP raise an alarm saying, hey, this abortion issue, this anti-women health care issue when it comes to abortion, when it comes to contraceptions, that is not a winner for them. Women make up the biggest voting bloc. So these strategists have an idea. Here's what we do. We deflect all that from the largest voting bloc to the smallest. And what do I mean? I mean the trans community. So that's what they're doing. They're going to go after a marginalized group, trans people, because they only make up about 0.5% of the population of the United States. And maybe only 1/100% when it comes to them actually voting. So that's what we got here. We got a very marginalized group with not a lot of power that they would love to shift the focus from. Because if Democrats aren't defending the largest voting bloc, then they're going to be forced to defend the smallest voting bloc and leave a lot of these women behind. And that's what the GOP is hoping for. It really is. If we can attack this marginalized group, we can deflect away from the women issues that we want to control so bad. Like abortion, like equal pay, like contraception, like health care, just health care in general. Being able to get out of the home and have a career, being able to go to school even. GOP isn't for that. They really aren't. They're really about power, holding on to it, and control. How to control the masses. They want to be able to keep the power for themselves and control everybody else while they do it. And that's what they're about. And especially when it comes to women and their choices when it comes to their health care, when it comes to contraception, and when it comes to abortion. And that's really what it's all about. And even though they see the polling, they just can't stop. Like James Lankford. He was just out saying about how we got to stop all this abortion going on. These women at the VA having this option, that's horrible. Taxpayer money shouldn't go to pay for their abortion. But we're paying their salaries with this. So basically, James Lankford's at the plank where, hey, we pay these women in the military a salary, and that is taxpayer money. We should be able to tell these women how they're going to spend the money they earn since it came from taxpayers. It's kind of a long way around kind of deal, right? But really, it's these women's money. They earned it. It's part of what they've earned. It's part of their compensation for doing the job for the government that they do in the military or wherever. And that's what that is. It's not taxpayer money when they've earned it. Yeah, it's taxpayer money that they're getting paid from, but they've earned that money. It's not really our money. I hear this a lot, even on some of the Facebook stuff I see where they're going after the police and stuff like that. I pay your salary. No, not really. It's not how it works. You don't pay their salary. It's not really how it works. You pay taxes like everybody else does. And that money gets to pay for services that we need, like fire protection and police. They don't really work for you. They work for the whole community as a whole on a sociological level, not on an individual level. So that's the difference that people get with this. And they get them confused quite a bit. And this is the same thing. Just because taxpayer money went to pay their wages doesn't mean they didn't earn it. Doesn't mean we get to tell them how to spend their money. And that's exactly what people like James Lankford want to do, especially with women. He would love to be able to control women and control anybody. He'd love to be able to control everyone, no matter who they are, to be just like James Lankford. That's the way James Lankford sees everything. It's just how he is. And it doesn't amaze me or even surprise me that he can't stop with this very extreme anti-abortion lines that he's doing that aren't popular with hardly anyone, except for maybe 15% of the base. And that's it. That's who he's pandering to. But honestly, I think James Lankford's a bigger strategical moron than that, because obviously he can't stop with this abortion issue that's obviously killing any chances the GOP is having on the national level. Okay, so it might get him here in Oklahoma because, one, yeah, you know, we have a lot of Republicans here and they'll vote for him. And not only that, everything else is gerrymandered around here, though the U.S. Senate race is a statewide seat. There's no way you can gerrymander that, but everything else being gerrymandered suppresses votes. We barely get a quarter of the registered voters to turn up to an election. That's registered voters. That's people that took the time and energy to go down and fill out the form to register. Those people, yeah, 4 out of 5 of those people don't vote, even though they took the time to register. That's where we're at in Oklahoma. And you're thinking, why would you do that if you take the time? Well, because they feel like there's no point in it. They don't have any real power. See, because it's gerrymandered. The Republicans stay home too, because they feel like we're going to win it anyway. I don't need to show up. And that's exactly what they say, and it's exactly how they feel. That's how we get the reddest state in America. How do we get the reddest state in America when 42% of the people are registered Democrat? Well, you gerrymander the hell out of it. That's what you do. And then you end up with 13 or 14 people that are Democrats in the whole of the legislature. Yeah, the Oklahoma State Legislature. So basically, they gerrymandered it so bad that Republicans get 3 times the representation and Democrats get about 3 times less. And that's exactly what they've done with it. That's exactly what screwballs like Ryan Martinez did to this state when he took the Koch brothers' money to come up with the maps that they wrote for him. Yeah, that's what happened. Those maps that we're using now, they didn't come from this state. They came from think tanks that were funded by billionaires like the Koch brother and Betty DeVos. That's who we're funded by when it comes to the maps they wrote. And it was a total gerrymander. It's a total power grab, and that's exactly what they did. So James Lankford feels pretty comfortable about coming out against abortion of any kind. Hey, you broke your water at 4 months? Too bad. My God says you got to keep that till term, and if it kills you, well, that's just God's way. And that's how James Lankford feels about it. And that's the way James Lankford thinks you should feel about it too. And by God, he's going to do whatever it takes to make sure he can control you to think exactly the way he does about all the issues. And if you don't, he's going to take your power away so you can't anyway. And that way, if anybody abuses you or anything else, well, that's all on you. See, it's not on James Lankford. And that's exactly how that works. But this goes further than just James Lankford, doesn't it? This is a national issue, see? Because in Oklahoma that might be okay. But nationwide, this abortion, this anti-women stance that the GOP is on because of their culture war that they're raging over, is really losing them support. The middle, the independents, the center-right, and the center-left are fleeing them like you can't believe. That's why they're losing all these races in the last couple of weeks. And they're going, what's going on? And then the strategists are saying, well, this is what's going on. We need to deflect away from these women issues and stay on these trans ones. Which really isn't working either. Because if you can see what's going on with Ron DeSantis and his fight with Disney, and even the GOP is having to come out and say, hey, this isn't conservative to go after businesses. You know, it isn't. It's actually authoritarian. It's fairly fascist. And that's exactly where Ron DeSantis is. He feels like he's comfortable using the force of big government to go after Disney, a publicly traded company, a non-government company. They're not a government entity at all or anything like that. But he's going to go after them. He's going to go after their shareholders. That's what Ron DeSantis is doing. And he's also getting a lot of pushback from this from Republicans saying, you know, I don't think this is conservative at all. Chris Christie came out last weekend. This isn't conservative. Several of Trump's old cabinet members and Trump himself, although that doesn't mean a whole lot. I mean, he's thinking he's going to have to run against the guy in 2024. So that's why they're all on him. But they're not the only ones. And so some of these people are seeing this. They're saying, hey, I don't know. I see this as a losing fight in the end. Yeah, you're really going to show it to the Disney people. You're going to give it to the libs. But in the end, man, you're going to look like an authoritarian. You're going to look like you're an autocrat. You're going to look like someone who's using the force of government, big government, to tell a private company what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and all because they use their First Amendment rights to disagree with Ron DeSantis. So Ron DeSantis, throwing a fit, being a coward, and has to go at him using the force of government to do it. And he's actually looking weak by doing it. Disney already did one run-in around him. Now he's thinking, well, I'm gonna put in low-income housing, and we're gonna build a prison right next to Disney. That's how he's gonna get back at them. And this is going to backfire spectacularly because Disney, they can actually kill Florida. Are they going to move? They could. If he makes it so bad that their land's not worth anything, if he makes it so bad that they can't do any taxes or they can't hire people, and he makes it so bad that people can't go to Disney World and it harms their bottom line, they can't hire people. And they're the biggest employer in Florida. And that's where you're at with the Disney debacle that's going on in Florida because of these culture wars that are failing them so bad. Personally, I think they should keep it up. Mostly, I think Democrats should keep them focused on the women issue. That's the biggest voting bloc. That's who we need to defend. They would really like us to deflect off to defending trans and trans only. There's a reason why. Because they're a really small group. Now, I'm not saying they don't need to be defended because they're really going at them hard, but there's a reason why they're going at them hard. So that we won't defend women anymore and defend these really marginalized group instead, leaving women out on their own wondering, where's my savior? And that's exactly what the GOP plan when it comes to this stuff. You can see it. They really don't want to talk about the abortion issue too much unless you're a crazy radical conservative like James Lankford, who just can't stop doing it because, that's just how he is, and he's from a red state, and he doesn't care what happens to the rest of the country. He feels like he can go in there like he did last time and be a traitor and do a soft coup to throw out tens of millions of votes from swing states that didn't vote the way he wanted them to. So that's where James Lankford is on this. And it's exactly where the GOP is on this as well. Because when it comes to those women issues of health care, when it comes to those health care issues of birth control, contraception, and abortion, man, they're so extreme right now. And this is what the Supreme Court has done to the GOP. The GOP, okay, we caught the bumper of the car. We caught our tail. Now what do? Do we let it go? Or do we eat our own tail until we bite our ass? That's just where they're at right now, with the culture wars going on left and right, and the abortion issue being front and center again this week because, see, strategic morons in the GOP can't let it go. Well, this is Across the Desk, and as always, we'll be seeing you next week.